I find it difficult to put it into words why the Rings of Power is not even close to the massive cultural, financial, and industry success of the Lord of the Rings movie trilogy based on the same fictional universe. Why is the Rings of Power so boring? But I don't have to put it into words, do I? This is a video. So I decided to compare a sequence of scenes from the Fellowship of the Ring and a sequence of scenes from the Two Towers with mostly episodes 4 and 5 of the Rings of Power.
I can't carry you! Come on!
My point will be the following. The Rings of Power lacks proper setups, its only payoff. And the payoff evidently comes lacking, because it was not properly constructed. The setup sets things in motion, pretty basic.
Wow.
It's the groundwork preparing the audience and the characters for upcoming events, plot points, and ultimately a climax. Setups may come through dialogues, atmospheric clues, incidents, exposition, or world building, amongst others. It's necessary to hook the audience, set expectations, construct a logical path of choices and consequences, and makes stories believable and understandable.
Gandalf, my old friend, this will be a night to remember.
Let's go to the first comparison. In the Fellowship of the Ring, Gandalf visits Sauron for counsel after confirming that Frodo and Bilbo have the One Ring. His superior has joined the enemy and defeats Gandalf in battle. He is now trapped at the top of a tower. Through his perspective, we see how the orcs are chopping down trees to use on a forge, as they are building a new army. We also hear an orc claiming that these trees have strong roots.
Trees are strong, my lord.
A dragonfly appears. He catches the dragonfly with his hands and says something in a mystical language. We don't know what, but we know he set some things in motion. Finally, we see his escape as a flashback after he meets Frodo on Rivendell.
I was delayed.
This is the payoff of this whole plotline. When Saruman was about to throw Gandalf from the top of a tower, a giant eagle appears to save Gandalf. After Gandalf escapes, he rejoins the group in Rivendell, and Elrond creates the Fellowship of the Ring. During the rest of the movie, the group is looking for pathways to avoid Saruman's army, because they know he's the enemy. This has consequences, as the shortcut through Khazad Dûm leaves the group one study short. Lastly, the movie's climax has two payoffs. First, Boromir succumbs to the corruption of the ring, and he attacks Frodo. This creates enough time for the orcs to catch up, and that attack leaves deep scars in the group. Boromir sails away, Frodo and Sam split, and the orcs capture Meryn and Pippin. As you see, the entire story followed a thread of interconnected plot lines that combined for a final payoff. This can only work because the movie laid the groundwork for each of these plot lines, and removing any of these pillars would diminish the emotional and entertainment impact of the climax, therefore making it less memorable and believable. Now, imagine the scene happens another way.
I was delayed.
Imagine Gandalf visits Saruman, and Saruman says, "I'm evil." In the next scene, Gandalf is trapped at the top of the tower. Then, an eagle appears to save him. A couple of scenes later, the Fellowship is traveling through the woods without Gandalf, but Gandalf appears to join them. And the explanation is that he knew the way. Finally, they arrive at an elvish named Human City, and a massive army of orcs appears to attack them. However, a massive army of sentient trees comes out of the woods and saves the day. This is how Rings of Power handles key parts of the plot. It has poor setups, so the payoffs throw logic out of the window to exist. Let's make a clearer comparison. In the first episode of Rings of Power Season 2, Eidar sends Halbrand to a region, as Halbrand promises to find Sauron there, and Sauron is Eidar's enemy. And the reason is, maybe, because Sauron wants to take the orcs to war, and orcs rather live peacefully, with their peaceful slaves. In another episode, a giant troll appears and talks to Eidar. He says they have a common enemy.
I hate him so much!
A couple of hours go by and we know nothing of Eidar. All we know is that he's waiting for Halbrand's information. However, by episode 4, his entire army moved from here, in Mordor, to elvish lands around here, and no one bats an eye. There's no reaction from the world around them. By episode 5, the massive army is 3 steps away from Eregion, and the elves are completely clueless. At the same time, Galadriel, Elrond and company were traveling from Lindon to Mordor to find Sauron. On the way, they find the enemy army, and for some reason they know immediately that it's Eidar's army. Perhaps it's their spider sense, who knows?
We came in search of Sauron. Instead we find Adam.
Elrond decides to teleport back to Linden to warn Kill Gil-galad because he arrives immediately. The king, as all elves in the show, is useless and decides to do nothing. And by the way, on Elrond's 2 seconds journey back to Linden, there were no whatever wraith, no petals, no dark magic awakening random things in the world. Blood comes and goes as it pleases, just like this ring falling into Galadriel's feet. Meaning, Halbrand traveled from Eregion to Mordor and back. Eidar traveled from Mordor to Eregion. Galadriel and Elrond traveled from Linden to beyond Eregion and found the messenger King Gil-galad sent to Celebrimbor to warn him about Halbrand's death. And then Elrond traveled from beyond Eregion back to Linden. And still, in all of this time, and all of this distance covered, no one has reached Celebrimbor with the single most important information the Elven Kingdom has. And how could they? This is what the show needs to continue. So, on the one side, the show's poor setups create unexciting events that feel like random bullshit. On the other side, the plots they do construct are either removed or lead to nothing, as that is what the plot needs to continue. The result of these two unholy writing ingredients is throwing logic to the depths of Moria. But rather than Moria being a city under a mountain, it's a talking elephant. Finally, all the reason Eidar needed to go to war was a random suspicious guy telling him that Sauron was there, without even asking how he knew it or who he was. And what happened to the people Eidar sent to follow Halbrand?
See that he's followed every step.
I know what happened. They removed that plotline altogether. Even if Halbrand is Sauron, and Sauron could deal with this easily, wouldn't it be more fun to actually see how he deals with it? Wouldn't this show have more quality if they followed through the storylines they create? This is why the show is both slow and also capable of skipping massive plot points. Let's go for another example, this time in the Two Towers, because I want to compare how these movies introduced the ends versus how the Rings of Power does. When Meryn and Pippin are trapped by the orcs, we hear the woods cracking when the orcs are chopping trees. This calls back to Saruman using trees on its forge in the previous movie.
Trees are strong, my lord.
Meryn and Pippin discuss the legend of sentient trees, as it could be the reason for these sounds. Elsewhere, we see armies of Saruman raiding Rohan, and a host of Rohan raiders chasing orcs. One night, another plotline influences the Hobbits' storyline. Bruchais and common orcs are guarding the Hobbits. Bruchais are taking these Hobbits to Saruman, because he believes they have the One Ring. Common orcs are helping, but they can't get along. In the midst of a revolt, they are attacked by Rohan riders. In parallel, we're seeing Aragorn, Gimli and Legolas tracking the Hobbits. They find a host of Rohan riders, and we learn another interconnected plotline. They were banished from Rohan because Saruman controls the king, so they are now raiding orcs in their lands, including the orcs that captured Meryn and Pippin. However, during the raid, Meryn and Pippin escape to the forest, and it seems haunted, magical. The day after, the Fellowship arrives to the forest, and they are scared of it. Back to the Hobbits, an orc is chasing them through the forest. The orcs catch Pippin, and from the top of the tree, Meryn screams. The tree opens his eyes, Meryn is astonished, and the tree crushes the orc. We then spent plenty of time with these beings, Ents, to understand what they are, what they face, and why they joined the war for the movie's climax. You see interconnected plotlines that build events and the resolution of these events. Many things happened so that Meryn and Pippin could meet the Ents, and magic often exists within carefully threaded coincidences. Let's see episode 4 of the Rings of Power, as there's also a rescue mission from warriors to someone defenseless. The difference is that despite the show's many hours of story, Isildur and Arondir did not develop a relationship in season 1, so why are they traveling together? Moreover, Theo, unlike Meryn and Pippin, is an evil creature that makes it impossible to care about. Here's what happens. First, Isildur's horse uses its magical nose to find Isildur in a spider cave, and they escape. On his way back, Isildur's horse gets lost after a battle with wildmen. At least he got some eye candy. Arondir finds him and saves them with his elf superpowers. Despite how massive Middle-earth is, people keep finding each other. So these two longtime friends go to random town. There, Theo tells him he knows where the horse is. No explanation, he just knows. Isildur and Theo, now best friends, find the horse immediately. However, Theo gets captured by something big. Now, Theo is trapped at the top of a tree, and Theo's passionate acting truly connects with the audience.
What's out there? Don't know yet. But whatever they are, they're big.
Back in Random Town, Arondir finds out that the new eye candy is evil because she brands herself with the burning mark of Adar apparently every night. So he tells her to lead him and Isildur to the White Men to find Theo. However, during the travel, she's hanging back with Isildur doing nothing, as Arondir is perfectly capable of tracking Theo. She's just there. In fact, Arondir finds a clue and says that humans did not capture Theo. It was something else. And while they travel together, their incredible acting during battle truly connects with the audience.
It's all right.
If that didn't click with you, how about eye candy and Isildur falling in love? I don't know what else was supposed to happen between two filler characters of the opposite sex in a bad show. Mind you, the plotline of her being evil meant nothing and led nowhere, on par with the series' structure at least. But while eye candy betrays Isildur not for the first time but the second, suddenly giant talking trees appear. They can't stop jabbing, but Arondir calms them down. He uses Hollywood's preferred taming method, something you probably saw in those new Jurassic Park movies. Finally, they free Theo. What are they? The show never told you. It's almost as if the movies are the setup for this series. This even goes as far as copying the Two Towers, as the trees explain how an army of orcs are destroying the forest as they march, so they are angry. When the trees explained this, Isildur said that they noticed, even though they never made a comment. That is exactly the problem. The setup is poor because the showrunners think that because we already saw exactly that in the previous movies, that is enough plot construction. Or that because Middle-earth has magic, construction is not even needed. The irony is that treating magical beings and events as random appearances erases the very mystical essence these events should have. The result downgrades the entertainment and engagement of the story. For example, not even Theo was surprised to wake up at the top of a giant tree, whereas Aragorn, Gimli and Legolas, brave and competent as they are, were afraid of the fangorn forest. Finally, eye candy wakes up from the massive punch the trees gave her and kisses Isildur. Nah, his true man finds her because he was trapped at the top of the tree, so Isildur lets her go. This is the biggest turndown in the history of TV. Also, this means absolutely nothing would change by removing this character from the show, which is also part of the problem. Even the characters they set up are meaningless. All of this was a mindless detour that barely influenced the plot, rather than a thread of plotlines coming together for an exciting, interesting, or significant event or resolution that feels part of a greater, grander story. Rather, it feels as if the show is made of puzzle pieces from different sets and sizes, and the writers are putting them together with tape. So then, the different disjointed plotlines of the show can be forced into a quote-unquote bigger storyline. Do you understand my point? Poor setups disengage the audience from the plot. Aleatory events make it feel lazy. Numbed acting disconnects the actors and viewers from the characters. What else is there to say? This is the Rings of Boredom. You get it? Like the name of the video. And keep the comment section
Civilized.